Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio in our Voices of the Great Beyond. This book was recently discussed and thought about ourselves, and we're going to relate to you a conversation about it. This book is a journey into ourselves. Are you ready? Today we're going to begin chapter 1, but before we begin, I want to share the behind the scenes of this book, which is amazing. It all begins, and let me share the slides with you because that's where it all began. This book, Voices of the Great Beyond, began with the medium Chico Xavier in Brazil. And Chico Xavier himself, as a medium, he always worked in groups. And that's a highlight for us because we know many mediums, we want to fly solo. They don't go far. They may become famous, but they don't become a legacy like Chico Xavier. Do we want to become a legacy? No. But we want to sustain a consistent pattern that deepens as we advance in this reincarnation. And that's what happened to Chico Xavier. He started it at 17, and he continued solidly until he discarnated in 2002 at 92 years of age. Chico Xavier had a group in the Spirit Center Meimei in the city of Pedro Leopoldo, the state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. And they had visualized a long table, several people who were trained and skillful, and he had Chico Xavier as one of the mediums, not only, but one of the mediums. And this time, he's not psychographing, as you see in the picture. He was receiving messages in speaking mediumship. He would be concentrated and allow the spirits to speak through him, sometimes elevated spirits, sometimes spirits that are being rescued and are relaying teachings to us. And the transcription of those recorded messages came in 3 books. One, Psychophonic Instructions, which you and I have already studied here at Kardec Radio years ago, and you can rescue it in our YouTube playlist, Psychophonic Instructions. Go there, watch it, because the studies are amazing, since these books are not published into English yet, but relayed here to you at Kardec Radio. And today we have the honor of, in a team effort at Kardec Radio, bringing to you the chapters firsthand. This was never done in English before. Firsthand, Voices of the Great Beyond. It can be a true support for us. And of course, the authors of the messages are several. Today we're going to begin the first message. But before we begin, there's always a preface by Emmanuel, Chico Xavier's mentor. And don't forget, every time we are doing any works of the good, our guardian angel is always helping us, always by our side, always, 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 always. Today, we're going to read to you a few sentences of the beautiful preface given by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier in May of 1957. 100 years after the foundation of Spiritism with the Spirit's Book. And he titled the preface, Before the Reason Divine. Of course, he's talking about the Christ. And he's saying a prayer, he's saying, Lord, bless our humble effort. Isn't that beautiful? Do you see? Spiritism is all about teamwork. You need to find your team and work together. It's not easy, it's not simple, but it's the only way to progress law of society. So Emmanuel is coordinating this effort through Chico Xavier and his group. And all the messages that are coming along were revised by him, were coordinated by him. And he's saying to Jesus, the governor of our planet, bless our humble effort, convert the word into our nourishment of optimism and comfort, friendship and understanding in the servants of the good. Everything we give is a co-creation with God. Think about when you have a child or a grandchild and you want to write a card to a teacher. When they're very little, you help them, right? It's a teamwork effort, right? They do their little thing or their great thing, and then we add our thing. That's exactly Emmanuel's side of the story. He's saying, may all of this that we're bringing together be nourishment for people. We nourish ourselves with love, and these words are of love. May we, the little apprentices of your divine lesson, incarnated or discarnated, gathered again in the ladder of renewal and progress that is our duty to draw, hear your message of confidence and encouragement. Peace be with you. Okay, Emmanuel is preparing us for what is coming into this book. Why did they decide to publish this book? Because those messages are really, really important and uplifting. You see, today we're going to begin with the message which is a warning in itself. Very, very current in our moment of earth. If you read this message, which was brought to us in 1957, you will see that this message, the warning message, seems to have written for the moment of today. The spirit author that spoke through Chico Xavier, spoke through him, is Antonio Luiz Sayao. Who is he? He is a spiritist born in Rio de Janeiro. He became a spiritist at a time when Brazil was not a spiritist at all, a spiritist country. At the time in which Kardec was releasing the books and then entering every corner of the world, Antonio Sayao was one of the few people in Brazil who were absorbing this message. Not only that, he had the courage to withstand the adversities of the skeptics and those who were truly orthodox in their religion. In Brazil, we have the foundation of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation at the end of 19th century, and Antonio Sayao was one of the few spiritists who were there supporting, who were working on it together with Bittencourt Sampaio and others. So he's one of the pioneers of Spiritism in the world. And that's how this book begins. And you're saying, Vanessa, why do I care? I'm not even quite a spiritist. And if I am, what is in for me? Immortal spirit, come with me. Let me share with you what is in for you. Okay? Let me share with you what is in for you, because this message is truly, truly uplifting. You ready? Shall we? Yes? All right, so let's go. Let me just fix here what we are talking about so the message becomes center stage for us. Here we go, friends. He says, we understand individual and collective suffering as a natural and fair imposition of what is not lawful for us to escape. Just as in ordinary existence, no one flees the service of cleaning if one intends to evolve and preserve oneself. So, individual and collective suffering. We can escape it. Why? Let's go back to ancient Buddhism when we come to know the source of suffering. It is true, our suffering happens because of our cravings and attachments. Cravings and attachments. And we're not only talking about food, craving for fame, craving for being loved, craving to be loved, craving to be rich, craving and our attachments. It's my pen, my things, my family, myself, my body, and in those we suffer. Can't escape it. And he's saying something quite interesting here, that this suffering comes like a detergent to clean, to make us permeable. That's the function of detergent. Detergent opens membranes, holes in the membranes, and enters to clean. So, he goes hand in hand with the teachings of Leon Denis, when Leon Denis talks about pain in the book, amazing book, After Death. Let's go on. He says more. There's no storm without benefit, and there's no night without dawn. We need a contrast. Says Professor Euripides Barçanufo, the educator, scholar in Spiritism, who says that we need the contrast of day and night, of good and bad, in order for us, the contrast of noisy and quietude, to understand the difference. How often we don't know anymore what is to be quiet because we're constantly engaged in social media, engaged in this, engaged in that, and then we suffer. Right? He goes on and says, we just want to comment with our brothers and sisters of faith on the need for a broader assimilation of the gospel in our lines of activity. Remember, he's talking to us in 1957 when Spiritism was in its first, let's say, more than half a century vividly in Brazil, but in the world as well, 100 years after the publishing of the Spirit's book. And he's reminding us after he passed away, he comes back and says, friends, don't forget that we need to assimilate in our activities, meaning absorb it and practice. Absorb it and mold our daily activities with it. And you're saying, Vanessa, I know I need to do this, but it's hard. Is it? Seriously, how can something so beautiful, uplifting, joyful, because the gospel is about the good news, how can it be hard? It's harder not to do it. So hard that we become sick because we are obstructing the flow of God's love. So it's important for us to go through this and absorb it. If we keep blaming people and life and the country and things, you know why I am not this? Because she didn't allow me to do this. Because he, or because of they, because of the president, because of the governor, because of this world. That childish attitude needs to change because we're creating suffering for ourselves. When we take responsibility, we say the inner adult takes charge and says to the inner child, we're going to make a better life now, because for many lives we've been whimsical, we've been children of God, quite ungrateful children of God, prodigal, spending everything God has given us. It's time to go back to the Father's house, the Mother's house, and surrender to the good news, which begins with, I am a child of God. That's a good news. I am a child of God. I was born to progress. I was born to love. I was born to serve. I was born to grow. I never regress. And he says to us that the title of Spiritist is equal to that of a revived Christian, involved the unavoidable obligation to help the world. He's not saying save the world. He's saying help the world. But majority of people, what do? They think, oh, but I already helped my family and the people at my work. Remember, there's no charity in helping people at work, because at work, we're being paid. We're being paid. And when we're being paid, what happens? What happens when we're being paid? The reward is already being received. Charity comes when there's no immediate reward. When we have the obligation to help the world. How? Beginning with ourselves, but also daily practicing selflessness. The teachings of Spiritism come hand in hand with the ancient teachings of every single philosophy and religion. This practice of selflessness is the only ways, when he's saying the obligation, the unavoidable obligation to help the world, he's saying to us, it's duty to help others, not only your family, not only yourself, but being committed. So no matter where you're living, even in the US, there are many shelters, there are prisons, you can always help. I tell you, recently, we were at the Spiritist Society of Washington, D.C., coordinating the efforts, and we received a letter from Japan. The Spiritist Society of Washington received a letter from Japan from somebody who is in a prison in Japan. This is not a Brazilian person or a Spiritist person, but a person from Singapore in a prison who got to know of the Spiritist Society of Washington, D.C. through the Singapore embassy. And this friend is asking us, can you please send me Kardec's books, the Gospel, the Spirit's book, so I can study more? And he talks much more about it. We were quite surprised. But we were thinking that we're here in our little corner, minding our business and not affecting the world. When you participate in your Spiritist group and center, you are in the task force of helping the world. That's why Antonio Luiz Sayao says, we who have already received, by the mercy of the Lord, the knowledge of divine justice through reincarnation and the certainty of the immortality of the soul, we constitute, in the name of the Master, the vast front of servers or servants with the duty to help humanity that struggles in the chaos. When I see spiritists who enter spiritist centers and leave and they mind their lives, they do not engage, they do not participate, they are not active in their practice, when they are just taking care of their little lives, a family and work, as blessed as it is, but they don't engage in the collective effort, we're doing a disservice to ourselves. Because you and I may be minority in the world, but remember, in 1957, when Sayao spoke this message through Chico Xavier and later transcribed and translated here, Spiritism was not very much known even in Brazil, and he was already seen as a visionary, that by knowing all that we know, divine justice and our immortality, the only way to be happy is to serve, to help humanity. And if you think the world is going wrong, remember, it's always been like this, but it's getting better. Because more and more people in the world are fully aware of our true nature. And he says, to be invested with the power that such a mandate grants us, it is indispensable not only to preach the gospel, but to incorporate it into our lives so that our life speaks louder than our words. So our lives speaks louder than our words. In neuroscience, we study about emotional body language, and we study the fact that in our body language, we may be congruent or not, meaning maybe our facial expression is smiling, but our physical body is fearful. When people look at us, we may say something else and nothing matches, and we become a question mark in people's lives. Sayao here, without knowing of those teachings of neuroscience, he's saying just that, coherence. We need to be coherent, to bring that good news in our facial expression, in our physiology, so much so that when people see us, they feel the vibrations, they see what's happening here, and our words may complement it, but our life speaks louder. So a moment of reflection for us. Is my life speaking louder in terms of the good news than my words? Are people in my life seeing that I am thinking of others more than me? That I'm becoming more selfless? That I'm becoming more loving, more caring, more compassionate, more fraternal? Or do I spend my days from morning to next morning, 24 hours, in my little to-do list, forgetting that there are people in the world who need our help? Of course, he's going to talk about those who do not want to join in, those who quit, the quitters. He says, in the dark vastness of the lower spheres, the soldiers who inadvertently lost the opportunity of victory, they cry. So if you say, oh, I used to be at a center, but this is what happened and I left and I'm here doing nothing, you cry. And if you say, Jesus, but you know, the president of the center and the director of the center, they did this to me. They didn't understand me. Excuse me, that's not a justification to do nothing. They are those companions of ours who passed through the luminous path of the doctrine, demanding that heaven come down to them without the courage to sacrifice raising themselves to heaven. So I go to the Spiritist Center, I go to the groups, and I'm expecting to be loved, to be understood, to be accepted, but I don't love, I'm not understanding, and I don't help anybody. And when I do, I have a hidden agenda. They exchange the eternal values for the plate of lentils of human ease, just like Judas, rushing themselves into the old boulders of disillusion to which they cling in despair and delayed regret. In the book Torments of Obsession by the spirit author Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, through Divaldo Franco, the medium, we get to know of Evaldo's story, who became to work in Spiritism and be a politician at the same time. And though given all the resources and opportunities, he gave the excuses that majority of people give. Oh, I can't. Oh, I'm too busy at work. I have my family to care for. When he discarnated, he was found in a cocoon of what? Guilt. He was imprisoned in his own guilt. And after many years, he was rescued by the mercy of God through his messengers, and the spirit doctors were performing a surgery to release him from the cocoon so he would recover, rehabilitate himself for another incarnation, because in that one, he failed. So you and I today are being asked, do we want to succeed in this reincarnation? Because it's all about selflessness. The great conflict between good and evil continues loud and terrible, urging us to humility, to work, to love, and renunciation. It's humbling. When we see the wrongdoings in the world, it's humbling. When we see it in ourselves, it's humbling. So it's about humility, but we need to keep being useful work, practicing openness of the heart, love, and renouncing. Renouncing what? Our selfishness. It's not about chocolate. It's about selfishness, pride. When I want my family to do what I want, when I want people in my group to do what I want, when I want people to do this, I need to renounce just that egotism. And he's saying more, spiritists, friends of ideal, if you wish to triumph in the promises you signed on high before this reincarnation, it is necessary to wake up to the responsibilities of living and believing, fighting fearlessly for the regeneration of ourselves and for moral upliftment of the earth. Twofold action. I regenerate myself and I uplift the earth. How do I regenerate myself? Generating anew, beginning anew, learning new responses to old problems. You remember the movie? That movie, huh? You remember the Back to the Future? When the main character, he was very nice, friendly, but if the bad guy called him chicken, he would lose his cool. And that's where he lost himself many times. new responses to the old problems. Say chicken, and then you say, thank you very much. I did that the other day as a practice in a post when people were disagreeing, and I said, thank you. They stopped because it's not a battlefield. People, they have the right to say what they want. And we have the right to respect it. That's called justice. But our world is not there yet. So we need to create new responses for old problems, and thus we regenerate ourselves and uplift the earth. It doesn't begin from the outside in. But remember, we're not alone. Sayao says that little by little, we're going to get to new meanings. Let us keep trial for blessing when things are testing us. Blessings. Work for daily spiritual food. When we fulfill our duties, we are nourished. Obstacles for a measure of our confidence. It's about the courage of our faith. You know that person that seems to be an obstacle in your life? And God is saying, no, you're reading that wrong. That person is for you a measure of your confidence. They say they disagree. Let's say you write something and this person says, no, I don't like what you're writing. But let's say you wrote it from the heart. Respect the person's opinion, but stay confident. You know that the author of Harry Potter, she was rejected more than a dozen times when she first wrote the first book. Were those obstacles? No. She kept on insisting and persisting, and look at the world now. It's Harry Potter's world. A measure of our confidence. Faith as our incessant stimulus. Let us keep ourselves in our faith as incessant stimulus and tranquil conscience. Quiet for our best reward. What is our reward? To go to sleep and know I did my best. I made an effort. I tamed those bad tendencies. I transformed myself a little better today than yesterday. I sculpted myself. I'm refining myself. I'm becoming more gentle, kinder, more compassionate, more understanding, more loving. Open your heart. And the battle in this century is decisive for us, he's saying. Spiritists and servants of the good news, endowed with the wealth of renewing knowledge. Chico Xavier used to say that to know if Spiritism is like winning the lottery in the world. So you won the lottery, so did I. Let us then accept the Christ. Have we accepted the Christ fully? Freeing ourselves definitely from the darkness, because the Christ comes with the truth. Or, says Sayao, we will remain darkness, indefinitely postponing our deliverance with the Christ. Are we accepting the Christ? Freeing ourselves from darkness? Or are we delaying in darkness? Oh, but Vanessa, I remember somebody saying to me one day, I will become a spiritist. I'm going to study spiritism. But I like money so much and material things that I can't give it up now. That's blindness. Okay, what can I say? It's up to you. It's your life. But it's important to know that for every decision, there is a consequence. You want to pay the price? Because sooner or later, that attachment is going to be tested. That attachment is going to be checked by our conscience, and we'll have to give it up. The sooner we coach ourselves to that, the better, the freer we are. And he finalizes his message by saying, may our Blessed Mother protect and bless us. Why is he bringing Mother Mary? Love. It seems that, when you look at Sayao, you see like, was he stern? No, he was loving. So loving that he knew that the message he's referring to is the Christ consciousness, which is all about love, that began with family, a special family with the Christ, Mary, the mother of all of us. So today I want to finalize this with you. And you feel free to make your comments, to write questions. I will answer it in the next program next week. But for now, I'd like to invite you for this short prayer as we together with Mother Mary, we together come to a beautiful and wonderful opportunity of feeling the blessings of her. Dear Mother, Mother Mary, beloved and kind, we feel your embrace of healing in this message of Antonio Luiz Sayao through the speaking mediumship of Chico Xavier, bringing to us the direction of our daily lives. We're so fortunate to know of all this, to be reminded constantly of our true essence, knowing of divine justice and our immortality, giving new meaning to our lives, and sustaining ourselves in your deep renewal. Thank you, dear Lord, for the gift of your presence, of your life, today and forever. Bless us, Mother Mary, Master Jesus, and so be it. This is Voices of the Great Beyond, dear friends. In Voices of the Great Beyond, we are finding ourselves. We are finding a new way of feeling, of being. Write down your question in your comment, please. And we will get back to you next program. And we look forward to this growth together, listening to the wonderful voices of the Great Beyond. Thank you for tuning at Kardec Radio, where you and I are always nourishing our